Hello everyone, Reverend Claire here. Welcome to Season 5 of the Collective Table podcast, Songs of Summer. We're so excited that you are listening along and joining with us. This summer, we're going to be talking to different musical artists of all different genres about their songs and their spirituality. Today, we're talking with Trey Pearson, and you are in for a treat. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, I'm super excited. I have to say, the first time I remember hearing about you was on the Bible for Normal People.
Oh, cool. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I don't know when I listened to that episode. It was a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Hey, this is so great!" So I'm just really excited that you're here with us. And so I think for me, I just like to kick it off and just have the audience just learn a little bit more about you. We want to talk about your song, Hey Jesus. We want to talk about the motivation behind it. But first, just let them know a little bit about you and what's really important to you. And We'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name is Trey Pearson. Hey Jesus, can you hear me now? It's been a while since I came out. I was wondering, do you love me? So my name is Trey Pearson. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in a very conservative Christian family, and I started a Christian rock band when I was 16 years old called Everyday Sunday. And so I grew up in a more like Calvinist kind of like Bible church, like small Bible church with mostly old people, but like grew up with parents that taught me that God loved me and Jesus loves all the little children of the world. And then, around 11 or 12, you find out, that they believe Jesus only loves some of the little children of the world, depending if they're chosen and, and that sort of predestination Calvinist sort of doctrine. I also started hearing messages that like God hated homosexuality and God's plan is for you to fall in love with the opposite gender. And that is how you can be a good, for me, like as a boy growing up, that's how you can be a good man of God. And I have always been a hopeless romantic. I have always wanted to experience love and falling in love. And so I always assumed that had to be with a woman. And I was also deeply scared of being gay. And I remember at a very young age praying, God, please don't let me be gay. God, please don't let me be gay. And people are always like, when did you know you were gay? And I don't know how to answer that, because when you grow up being brainwashed to believe something is wrong with you, you compartmentalize, you push things down. And I knew I had attractions, but I also was taught that was like temptation from the devil. And so I didn't want to believe I was gay. I did everything I could to choose to be straight. I never thought of my feelings towards my guy friends as being gay. I just thought that was my desire for having close relationships. And it was easy for me in the subculture I was raised in to sort of justify that. I also really cared about this faith tradition that I was growing up in and wanted to understand what was God's plan for me and what did God want from me. And so I loved the Bible. I loved trying to read the Bible and understand God's plan for me. And so I really put all my faith into believing that I was straight and God wanted me to marry a woman. That's how I was going to experience love. And so I, had a couple girlfriends growing up, not like I never even made out with a girl, but my first girlfriend broke up with me because I wouldn't kiss her. But like it was easy because you also grew up in purity culture where it was easy to just like, oh well, gotta wait for marriage, don't want any temptation, and then all those other feelings towards boys. Well, that's just a temptation from the devil, we were taught, right? And so I started this Christian rock band. I started going to this mega church youth group at 14. These kids would write songs, play them for the youth group. I thought that was cool. I did theater downtown Columbus growing up and loved performing, got into singing. And I saw these kids write songs. I thought, well, I grew up teaching myself how to play piano. I thought I could do that. And so I started writing songs, put a band together. And after my freshman year of college, signed a record deal with this band with a big Christian record label out of Nashville. And I started touring the world with my Christian rock band and started getting #1 singles and getting to go to all 50 states and 20 countries. And it felt amazing in so many ways. And I do think like having that sort of camaraderie with bandmates and things like that, it really fulfilled part of what I yearned for and that kind of intimacy. And if you ask anyone that ever tours with a band, you find out being in a band can be like a marriage. It really can. Like even for straight guys, you just build this bond and this intimacy. And I think a lot of that was me trying to fill this hole of what I didn't have and what I wanted and what I yearned for. And the thing is, it never completely filled that hole. And I, still having this desire to fall in love, dated a girl in my early 20s. And then at 25, there was this girl that grew up in the same church as me that she was great. She was fun. She was home from college. I was home from tour for Christmas. We were at a friend's house from our church, hanging out and just having fun, laughing, and I just thought, I need to meet a girl like her, but I didn't think of her right away. I was like, but she's fun. We have a blast together. And nobody ever tells you just because you have fun with a girl doesn't mean you're straight, and for any gay guy, just because you have a girl best friend does not mean you should marry them. But like, I obviously could not admit that I was gay to myself, let alone anybody else. And so I just really started like talking to her more, texting her more. We started hanging out more. And eventually I asked her to be my girlfriend. And then a year later, I asked her to marry me. I thought I could see myself raising a family with this girl. Again, never had made out with her or anything like that. The most we ever did was a peck goodnight at the end of the night. But I also wondered like, well, maybe once we get in that position, like, on our wedding night for us, then it'll just all magically work. It'll all happen. And of course it didn't. And, but we got married and I quickly realized how difficult that was going to be. And, I know this is terrible, but I just realized what, I felt like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because, well, maybe not a hard place, depending on how you look at it. I'm so sorry. That's terrible.
Understandable. Understandable.
That's awesome. So perfect for us.
I had just committed my life to this person in front of our family, our friends, our church. And I'm so sorry. Anyway, but yeah, and I also realized that where my mind would even have to go to try to perform. And I felt guilt and shame and felt like, is it because I've given in to the devil so many times with my thoughts and what I think about to try to, do such things. Exactly. And so, it was torturous for years, but like 7 months in, she got pregnant. We had our daughter. And then a few years later, we had our son. And then all of a sudden I found myself 7 years into a marriage, still hoping things would get better. The same things I was hoping the first week of my marriage. And it was a lot of denial. It was a lot of compartmentalizing. And to be super honest, I think, it was this taboo thing. We could never talk about this failure, this huge failure in our intimacy. And because we didn't have the tools, and we both grew up believing very backwards things about this stuff. And just the fact that you couldn't even talk about it is so much of that brainwashing and that spiritual trauma that has happened from the environment we grew up in. And so you said to say a little bit.
I know that I could never change. I tried so hard and brought so much pain, and I just want to be loved for who I am.
You said to say a little bit about myself. I don't know how to do it without kind of going into
I love every
detail.
bit of it.
Okay, cool. And so I
continue.
All right. So I got to this point where I think I was still looking for this always from the time I was a teenage boy into being married for 7 years and having 2 kids. I was still searching for that intimacy with other guys that I knew I couldn't find even in a wife. But I grew up in a world where that was all about, it was always about believing that everything we read in the Bible, God had the authors write every word.
They were in trances.
Yeah, it was inerrant. It was infallible. It was all these words that we've come up with that have nothing to do. And you don't understand as a kid that Jesus never talked about the Bible being inerrant. There wasn't a Bible. There was the Hebrew scriptures. And he never said, hey, a few hundred years from now, these guys, these men are going to put together, these powerful men are going to put together all these books. And you have to believe God wrote every word of it or you can't follow me. But you don't understand that as a kid. You just grow up in this culture being taught, oh, you better believe this. And says homosexuality is an abomination. And so me, a kid who read the Bible front to back 6 times as a teenager, memorized the book of James. I was in Bible Bowl. We had buzzers. I was really
That's
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But, so I really wanted to understand, what is God's plan for me? And obviously feeling so much shame about why do I feel this way about other boys? And really wanting to experience that intimacy, obviously very confused and choosing to marry a girl and believing with all my heart that it was going to be good and work. And then taking 7.5 years where then this taboo marriage where you couldn't talk about the lack of intimacy for finally something to happen, and my yearning for intimacy with always on that search from 13 into my 30s for someone to be like, hey, Trey, do you think you might be gay? Like nobody ever felt like they could come to me in a loving, honest way and talk about that, including my wife. And then all of a sudden we got in a position where, which I won't go into all the details, but where my wife was sort of forced to ask me, Trey, are you gay? And I had never been able to admit that to myself. I'd become affirming at this point. Like, so, you start to travel the world and see things differently. And this guy named Rob Bell comes along who was like shaking up like the way I saw the Bible. And I ended up meeting him. We become friends. He becomes a mentor of mine. And so I start to question all these assumptions that I grew up with, including inerrancy and infallibility. And so I remember getting to the point while I was married, after having children, where I remember asking him, Rob, for the first time, I said, do you think maybe the Bible's not infallible or inerrant? And he got such a kick out of it. And, he just was always giving me books to read and never gave me straight answers, but would have me read and say what I thought about it. And I remember getting to the point, even with my wife, where I was just like, I don't know that I think it's a sin to be gay, and this is after deconstructing a lot of things about my faith and trying to build this new understanding of what I believed, and but still never feeling like it was an option for myself. So I was progressing in my journey, and I still, as somebody who's always wanted to be self-aware, being very not self-aware about this major part of myself. And finally, after 7.5 years, my wife asked me, she says, are you gay? And everything's racing through my mind. And, things in our marriage are terrible. I didn't think they could get worse. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, if I say no, it's going to get even worse than it is right now. And it feels like it's falling apart, but I don't know how to say yes. So all I knew to say in that moment was, I don't know, but I think I need to get help. And I called, I was even scared to talk to Rob Bell about this. And I'm also became friends with this guy named Trip Fuller, who has this very long podcast that's been going a long time called Homebrewed Christianity. It's a theology podcast. And I felt too close to those people. I was scared they'd be angry with me if I tried to talk about all these feelings I had. So I just met another friend, Jonathan Martin. He's an author and blogger and whatever, and pastor. And I reached out to him, and for the first time in my life, I said out loud, I think I might be gay. And I just started bawling, and that is the first time I ever admitted it to anyone. And during that, he got me with a therapist friend of his, and through that time, I processed coming out of the closet. And that's the very quick answer to your first question.
Excellent.
And how long ago was that?
When my life hit the fan, as I like to say, that was the fall of 2015. And then
this is a lot to go through and it's, it's only 2022. I mean, that's not that long ago,
And then June of 2016, or it was May 31st, I came out publicly. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind. So I kind of hung up my old Christian band and started over as a solo artist and put out my first album, Love Is Love, and now the new album.
When this happens and you have your band, do you say, okay, I'm done? Do you tell them and they're done? Is it, like you said, that a band's kind of like a marriage?
So I always had different bandmates through the years. Like I signed this record deal and then my first album came out when I was 21. And, to go like 13 years in a band, unless you're like Amy Grant or DC Talk or some major like Christian rock band, it's really hard to maintain the same group the whole time because you just don't make enough money in Christian music. And so I started this band when I was 16. It was always my baby. I owned it. So I had different people come in and out through the years. And then when everything kind of hit the fan, I had a big falling out with the bandmates that were touring with me at the time. And honestly, that was a big part of why things fell apart. And so they had no say on keeping the band going or anything like that. It was my choice to hang things up. Yeah.
And here you are now releasing your own albums.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about this song, Hey Jesus. Love the lyrics, super moving. And I have to say, if we can, I also want to talk about the video because it's very powerful.
Beautiful.
And people that are in it, amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I recommend, please go check the video out, check the song out. But can you tell us a little bit about how it came to be? How was it birthed?
Yeah, I was actually sitting in this room right here with my guitar, and I had, shortly after coming out, just taking in the emotions of feeling so rejected by my family, by my church friends, all the people that were supposed to love me like with that unconditional love from God, right? And all of a sudden, all those people were gone, and it was feeling like having believed my whole life that it was a sin to be gay, that homosexuality was an abomination, that God would be angry if I was this way. And it was just processing those emotions, and so, even with the song, it doesn't really give an answer per se. And it's just more like allowing myself to process all those emotions I had always felt as a kid. And honestly, I just started strumming these chords and the whole song poured out of me in like less than a half hour.
Wow.
And I just wrote it out and decided to go ahead and record it and put it out. And it's one of those things that just keeps building. It's never really gone away as far as the messages I get about that song.
Hey Jesus, can you hear me out? I just want to love like everyone else. I was wondering, since you made me this way, do you want me to?
And so I decided to go ahead and re-record it for this new album. The new album's called Somebody You Knew. I don't know. This song is one of those songs that I just feel like continues to reach new places. And I just performed it for PBS special called True Colors.
Wow.
That's part of a Pride Month special here in June.
Awesome.
And I did it with the American Pops Orchestra, along with two other songs from my new album called Can't Go Back and I Can't Make You Love Me, which was written about my family and old church friends and not being able to go back to those places. But yeah, so it just feels like it keeps taking on new spaces, and it doesn't feel like it is my story, but it's so many other people's story. It feels very communal. Yeah, it's just talking about wanting to be loved for who we are. And that's really the message of the song. And with the music video, I wanted it to be, I I didn't want to do anything safe. I wanted to really show queer people where they are, you know, and my best friend Megan shot the video and we directed it together, and I think it came out really beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you talk about, you know, and you talked a little bit about intimacy and sexuality, and I think it is something that Christianity has just got wrong. And yet biblically, we are sexual people. God created us to be in that space, to be in these intimate relationships. And you show vulnerability, you show that intimacy, and it's very powerful.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, the biggest thing that's pissed me off about the evangelical church in general, you know, in my deconstructing even before I came out, but especially after coming out and being so marginalized, is that, you know, the evangelical church's old tune when I was growing up used to be, oh, it's a choice, right? Yeah. And now there's so much evidence that it's not a choice, that they've changed their tune to, oh no, that's just like, it is a temptation, but that's like your thorn in the flesh that God doesn't want you to give into. And so basically, the whole evangelical church has decided, oh, God made you and loves you, but doesn't ever want you to fall in love or experience intimacy like God wants me to, you know? And that's their message to all queer people, to all LGBTQ people is, oh, well, God just doesn't want you to fall in love. And that's all, you know, obviously my heart in the line of the song is, do you want me to fall in love, to know what it's like to love someone else in an intimate way? And why would God want you to, but not me? That makes no sense. And so I really wanted to show that intimacy in the video because it's easy for people to like pretend it doesn't exist or it shouldn't exist or it's not right. It's right for them to experience and not me. And so I really wanted you to have to watch it. And I even had some Christian people that are, you know, affirming that felt like, oh, this is never going to reach the church because it's too vulnerable. And it's like, well, I'm sorry. I didn't do it for them. You know, I did it for all queer people wanting to know that they are loved. And if you can't even bear to look at that, well, that's your problem and not
right.
You know, that, you know.
Amen.
Amen.
We need more of it.
But yeah, thank you.
And you're a beacon of light. I mean, that's the really awesome part is you're allowing more people to come to the faith and more people to be a part of the faith. And so I know you performed with Five Iron Frenzy, right? Was there a moment where you sort of were snuck in?
Yeah. So that summer that I came out, it went viral. It became the #1 trending topic in the world on Facebook and Twitter and all those things. And I ended up talking to the New York Times, CNN. I was on The View. I was very lucky to get nominated for a GLAAD Award on The View. I got to go to the GLAAD Awards and hang out with Whoopi Goldberg. That was crazy.
That's cool.
But I got to do several Pride festivals that summer. My first time ever going to a Pride festival, and I was performing in Columbus and San Diego and Charlotte and Las Vegas. And I also got invited. I had a Christian music festival in Northern California in Redding called Joshua Fest. They asked me to come back because I'd played there, 7, 8, 9 times. And I was friends with the founders of the festival, and Aaron, one of the founders, he reached out to me after my story came out, and he's like, listen, we want to show our support for you. We've wanted to do it with Jennifer Knapp, and we've been trying to figure out the right timing to do it. And we're like, you should come. So it's going to be Switchfoot, Relient K, Five Iron Frenzy, Skillet, who will be another conversation for another time. But,
sure.
Oh, and I've been friends with all these people, and some were a lot worse. Jeremy Camp, also from San Diego, Skillet, you know, they love me, but haven't wanted to talk to me since I've come out, and they just say the worst things about gay people, and it's angering. And then I have other famous in the Christian music world, famous Christian rock stars, which is such a stupid term, but anyway,
that's fine.
That were like,
I get it.
Were like texting me after I came out of The View. One of them texted me, and I just thought, hey, could you tweet this, because this could really help a lot of people, right? And so I got invited to go be a part of Joshua Fest as the first openly gay person to ever perform at a Christian music festival. And less than 2 weeks before the festival, the Sound and Light Company, which was a Christian-owned sound and light company in California, they threatened to shut the whole thing down if they didn't cancel me off the tour. And so I, of course, let my band friends know, hey, I'm not coming now. And Five Iron actually was not going to go. They were going to protest and say, hey, if Trey can't come, we're not coming. And then they got the idea that, well, what if instead of canceling, what if we have you come up and perform with us? And so they called the owners. They're like, do we need permission? Or are we able to do this? And the owner's like, nobody's ever had to ask permission to have somebody come up and perform with them. So like we were all just like, I got my flight booked, so I still went, and they brought me up, and the Relient K guys and Switchfoot guys came up and cheered me on.
Oh, that's so cool.
And the crowd was amazing. Most of the crowd just went nuts, and people saw me when I got there, and lots of people were coming up to me, and it was really just this beautiful, beautiful moment. And Billboard Magazine ended up finding out about it and wrote an article about it.
That's
cool.
Cool.
It was just really, really neat and moving. And so I didn't get to do my set, but I still got to perform, and just having the love of the crowd there and the other bands saying we stand with you was just a very, very moving thing. And one of the best moments of my life.
That's awesome. And I know Reese Roper.
So very redeeming in so many ways. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. Reese Roper has sort of been, waving the flag for all. He's all about the outcast.
Yeah.
And their music's always about the other. And I think that's one of my favorite bands. So I was always excited that you did that.
It's crazy because that's like how Jesus was too. Isn't that
exactly. How we need to be.
Right. Yeah. So that was a beautiful moment. So ever since then, I keep writing songs. I feel like I've been able to become even more creative because, of course, I've been able to tap into all these things I'd never been able to tap into, and you find this new self-awareness, and it's just inspired a lot of creativity. And I just put out my favorite album of my entire life with this new one, Somebody You Knew, and it's the most raw and vulnerable and feels like the most creative. And I'm just having lots of fun with it.
Yes, let's talk about this because this is your new album that you'll start releasing songs.
July 1st is the actual release day.
Awesome.
And either the PBS special just came out or it's about to.
Right.
But I did it with the Indigo Girls and a few of the RuPaul's Drag Race queens and the American Pops
So
Orchestra
cool.
perform my songs with me. And so I got to take my kids with me to go film that. And so it's a very exciting time.
And I do want to just highlight this because I go to your website and I check stuff out, and I love that you have this one tab and you call it Conversations. And I just think it's the greatest tab. First, just the name of it is Great Conversation because it's just so inviting, but you've got some good material there. You obviously have your story, which is super powerful. And you started to touch on this a little bit. This maybe gets into it is people like Justin Bieber, who are, and I appreciate the thing that you wrote about, trying to encourage artists. Like, where do they stand? Are they going to actually promote your music or promote and be allies to the LGBTQIA community? And so I didn't know if you wanted to talk at all about that, but that was the last one I read on your website.
Yeah. I think it's hard because you see some of these sort of celebrities that are moved by Jesus and Christianity, and you don't know where some of them stand, and especially the ones that go to churches that are not affirming,
right? And
that might seem like hip churches or edgy. It's always those churches that are the most like hiding how bigoted they are. And so it is frustrating. I definitely wrote about Justin Bieber going to that church, and then I ended up doing an interview with Billboard about that as well. But I just saw him at the Grammys talking to Lil Nas X, and it's like, okay, like, are you just like loving on him because you think he's a sinner and you hope he finds Jesus, or do you actually love him and affirm him? And if so, why would you support a religious institution that is spiritually abusing LGBTQ children growing up? Because that is extremely damaging for countless people. And as long as you take part in a system that supports that, gives money to it, publicizes it, any of those things, you are taking part in the spiritual abuse of those children.
Do you want me to fall in love?
at a stage like where, we had the same problem with the church when it was with slavery a couple hundred years ago, right?
Yeah.
Where churches were trying to justify being a part of the slavery institution. And then, even 60 years ago, we still had black and white people drinking from different water fountains.
Right.
And we obviously see the racism that still has affected churches to this day. And then I think, we look back 60 years ago and go, oh man, I can't believe they would ever make black and white people drink from different water fountains, or I can't believe there were churches that were for slavery. And we sit here and we accept the fact that there are churches that are spiritually abusing LGBTQ people. And we still give our support to those things. And 60 years from now, people are going to look back and go, wait, you didn't let gay people get married? Are you serious?
Yep.
Wait, our grandparents went to a church that wouldn't marry gay people? That's crazy. That's what's going to happen. Yep. And so we're in a time where it just has to be called out. It has to be talked about, and it has to change. And it's not good enough to just accept the fact that people go to homophobic churches. It's just not anymore. We are way past that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm just, I'm trying to use my voice to call out this shit everywhere I can. And I feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing after this journey that I've gone through. And so I just try to use my art and my voice to keep having those conversations. And so it's with my music, it's with another project I'm working on right now, and it's with being a dad, and it's with, what I post about on social media. So I don't know.
Totally.
So what does the future look like? What's out there?
I co-wrote a movie about my story, and it's in the process of we have a director on board, we have producers on board, and it's in the process of working to get it greenlit, to get funded. And so it's a slow process, but it's been something I've been working on for a few years, and I've never talked about publicly till right now. So so I'm doing this album, and then co-written a screenplay about my story. And, it is fictional characters, but it's all based on my actual experiences. And so that is the next thing that I am working on. And I'm
so cool.
Really, feels very meaningful. And, all the art and work that I'm doing, I'm trying to continue to have conversations that hopefully help break down walls and hopefully help queer kids and adults, LGBTQ people, to have better relationships with themselves and with other people. And I just am continuing to try to have those conversations.
Well, and the one place you didn't mention was the Safe Space Tour, because that's also a
I have a closed group on Facebook called Trey's LGBTQ Safe Space. Yeah. Thousands of LGBTQ people and allies, and it's people sharing their journeys. And so I've been doing this thing for the last few years now called Trey's Safe Space Tour, and I go all around the world, and it's kind of a storytellers where I perform my songs and talk about them. And now I am kind of combining that with a new album. So it's going to be called the Somebody New Tour. Wow, and cool. And I'm going to continue to do that. And I cannot wait to come and do it with you all. That'll be great.
Yeah. Well, we are just so grateful that you've taken time to talk with us today and to share just your story and the authenticity. I mean, you can just hear it in your, I just want to say amen. Like, I hear preaching. It's been a gift, right? You're just a gift. And
thank you.
And whatever we can do to support that and amplify your voice is what we're here for. We want to thank you.
Thank you, Trey.
That means so much. And I just, love that you all do this work. And it means a lot for you all to lift up queer voices and to allow me to be a part of it. It means a lot.
And just to make sure, can you just tell people how they can always connect to you and make sure they're following you and going to the right place to know what's going on in your life?
Yeah, I think, you can find me on all the social medias. It's just Trey Pearson. And then you can go to treypearson.com if you want to find it that way.
Cool.
As you said, there's my conversations and links to my music. And of course, I'm on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube and all those things as well. And so, yeah, that's it.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you all.
Hey, Jesus, can you hear me out? I just want love like everyone else. I was wondering, Could you love me the same?